the complete and utter madness of what happened just 3 years ago, of totally opening up our borders to hundreds of millions of people living in very poor East European countries and saying to them, as many of you who want to come and live in the United Kingdom as want to come can. And this was something that was supported by all three parties, voted for by all three parties. I'm pleased to say that UKIP were the only party to vote against it, because we made the argument, of course, immigration, if it's controlled, is a good thing for the country. Of course, we want people who can come and work here to have proper work permits. We're happy with that. But we do not believe in open border immigration, and I think what...
You think? I see. No statistics, no sources, empirical data or undeniable facts. You just think. Well, if there's one good thing I can say about you, it's that you've definitely found your perfect career.
What happened in the last few years is that right across the UK, not just in the big cities, but in the small market towns and villages, people have seen a massive change. We're seeing social dislocation, we're seeing police chiefs, we're seeing school teachers, we're seeing people saying we simply cannot cope with an influx on this scale.
Personally, I would submit that the problem is that our system is broken and needs reform, whether we open our borders or not. But regardless, what makes you think that you have the right to live at the expense of others simply because of the circumstances of your birth?
And for many, many people, they're finding it quite difficult to recognise the neighbourhoods in which they live.
I have a suggestion for all the people who can no longer recognise their communities because there are people living in relative proximity to them who don't fit their preferred shade on the Dulux colour chart. You can still have a sense of community by taking everyone who thinks like you, pissing off into the woods where no one can see you, and there you can dance around your burning crosses with your wee white hoods to your heart's content.
And I do believe that we need to have a freeze on immigration into this country for a 5-year period.
Really?
For a 5-year period, and I'll tell you why. Because we don't actually, because we'll have work permits, as I've just explained. But the reason for doing it is because we don't know, and David Blunkett admitted this, who's actually living in the country.
Another way to make sure that everyone in the country is here legally would be to totally open our borders to whoever wants to come in. That way, the government wouldn't have to keep records of immigrants at all.
If, on the other hand, you're a plumber, a plasterer, a bricklayer, a lady hairdresser, whatever you are, if you're an ordinary person trying to earn a real living, then the fact that someone has a work permit to come in doesn't help at all. What it means is they've got the right to take your job.
For someone who rallies against Marxism so much, then Griffen is beginning to sound remarkably like a Marxist. But that is beside the point. Let me ask a simple question. Is forcing immigrants to leave the country at the barrel of a gun so that you can artificially inflate the price of the services that you provide not extortion?
Measure sooner or later which is going to stop immigration and stop large numbers of sub-Saharan Africans dying on the way to get over here is to get very tough with those coming over. Frankly, they need to sink several of those boats. Anyone coming up with measures like that will support.
So, would you injure and kill civilians with what I assume would be military force in order to continue to allow non-competitive UK workers to rip off their clients? But regardless, there is no way this would ever work. How do I know this, you may ask? The answer is, I know this because so many boats already sink crossing from Africa to Europe, and people are still more than willing to take the chance to get into the European Union. So, I have a challenge to those who would restrict immigration. And that challenge is, can you explain to me why people born in Britain have more right to live here than someone born in a foreign country? In other words, can you explain to me why a person's rights are decided by the circumstances of their birth?